This isn't the sound of a woman breaking down. It's the sound of one preparing for war. Isabella Rossi was an ex-wife, a title that had cost her everything: her career, her home, her name. The man who took it all, Damien Shaw, had vanished, leaving her to drown in the ruins of their life. Now, with a final eviction notice in her hand and nothing left to lose, she packed one small bag. She was calm, deadly calm. Because hours later, she wouldn't be at a shelter. She wouldn't be at a friend's house. She would be standing at the 30-foot wrought iron gates of Sebastian Cole, the most reclusive and ruthless billionaire in America. And in her bag, she carried the one secret that could destroy them all. The silence in apartment 3B was absolute, broken only by the thin metallic zip of a Toomey suitcase. It was the last good thing she owned. Isabella Rossi folded her few remaining possessions with a precision that bordered on surgical. A gray cashmere sweater, 2 silk blouses, a simple black dress, toiletries, and finally a thick leather-bound book that looked like an old-fashioned ledger. She placed it at the bottom beneath the clothes, a hidden weight. She was calm. It was this calmness that had terrified her ex-husband Damien Shaw during their divorce proceedings. He had expected tears, screaming a public spectacle. He had, in his own words, left her with nothing. He had taken their shared business, the glittering Shaw and Rossi Fine Arts Gallery in Soho, and leveraged it into oblivion, encumbering their joint assets with so much debt that the divorce settlement was a joke. The judge, bamboozled by Damien's high-priced lawyers from a top-tier Manhattan firm, had looked at her with pity. "Miss Rossi," he'd said, "your signature is on the business loans. The debts, unfortunately, are marital." Damien, sitting across the courtroom, had given her a small, tight smile. The same smile he'd given her when he first proposed, the one that made her feel seen, and the one he'd given the 22-year-old socialite Chloe Ryder when the New York Post snapped their picture in St. Bart's. That was 6 months ago. Now Isabella was in a 400-square-foot studio on the Upper West Side with peeling paint and a view of an air shaft. The eviction notice taped to her door, stark and final, had been the last domino. The debts had finally, irrevocably consumed her. She was 42 years old, a world-renowned expert in pre-Raphaelite art, and she was, by every legal definition, a destitute failure. Most women would be hysterical. They would be calling friends, family, a hotline. Isabella, however, felt a strange, cold clarity. The panic had burned itself out weeks ago, leaving this hard, quiet resolve. She looked at the small mahogany box on her dresser. It held her wedding and engagement rings. She'd kept them, thinking one day she might sell them for rent. But no, they were part of this. She walked to her small desk. Beside the eviction notice was a stack of final demands from creditors, and beneath them a single pristine business card she had found while sorting through the financial wreckage of her marriage. It was thick, cream-colored cardstock embossed with a simple, elegant crest. Sebastian Cole. Private Investments. There was no address, just a single private phone number. Sebastian Cole, the Grey Wolf of Greenwich. A man who made billionaires look like middle management. He was a legend, a recluse, and according to her ex-husband, the devil himself. Years ago, Damien had lost a fortune in a hostile takeover bid. The man on the other side, Sebastian Cole. Damien had spent years ranting about him, blaming Cole for every setback, painting him as a monster who destroyed companies for sport. Isabella picked up her phone. She didn't call the number. A call could be ignored. A call was weak. She zipped the Toomey bag. She put on her best coat, a dark wool trench that still held its shape. She picked up the rings. She walked to a pawn shop on 9th Avenue and sold them for $1,800 in cash. It was enough. She took the subway to Grand Central Terminal, the polished leather of the suitcase handle cool in her palm. She bought a one-way ticket on the Metro North to Greenwich, Connecticut. She wasn't running away. She wasn't seeking shelter. She was an ex-wife, a ruined woman with nothing left. And that, she knew, was the most dangerous kind of woman in the world. She was calm because she wasn't going to Greenwich to ask for help. She was going to present a bill. The train from Grand Central moved from the graffiti-scarred tunnels of Harlem into the manicured autumnal suburbs of Westchester. Isabella watched the world transform. The concrete grime gave way to sprawling lawns, stone fences, and glimpses of imposing colonial houses. By the time the conductor called Greenwich, the air itself felt different, thinner, colder, saturated with the scent of old money and damp leaves. A taxi carried her from the quaint station winding through private roads shielded by towering oak and maple trees. The driver, seeing her single bag and determined expression, hadn't asked questions. He knew the addresses in this part of town. He finally pulled up to a set of 30-foot-high wrought iron gates. They were black, severe, and topped with sharpened spikes. A high gray stone wall disappeared into the forest on either side. There was no house visible. There was only the wall, the gates, and a small, discreet security box. "This is it. Graywood," the driver said, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. "You want me to wait?" "No, thank you." She paid him in cash, adding a generous tip. She needed no witnesses to her potential failure. The taxi pulled away, its engine noise swallowed by the dense woods. Isabella was left alone, a small figure with a single suitcase facing a fortress. She took a breath, the cold November air sharp in her lungs. She walked to the intercom. A moment later, a crisp, disembodied voice crackled from the speaker. "This is a private residence. You are trespassing." "My name is Isabella Rossi," she said, her voice perfectly steady. "I am here to see Mr. Sebastian Cole." "Mr. Cole is not receiving visitors. You are not on the schedule." The voice was dismissive. This was a place used to turning away hopeful salespeople and the desperate. "I am aware I'm not on the schedule," Isabella said, pitching her voice to be clear, firm, and devoid of pleading. "Please deliver a message to Mr. Cole. Tell him Isabella Rossi is here, and tell him I have the Rossetti ledger." A beat of silence. "I don't know what that means. Please leave the perimeter." "Add one more thing to that message," Isabella insisted, her heart now hammering against her ribs, but her voice remaining a perfect, calm monotone. "Tell him it concerns Damien Shaw." This time the silence stretched. 1 second, 10, 30. She could feel a camera invisible staring at her from somewhere in the stone. She did not fidget. She did not look away from the speaker box. She stood as if she had every right to be there. Finally, the voice returned, all condescension gone, replaced by a cold, neutral efficiency. "Mr. Harrison will be down to collect you." A heavy thud and a hydraulic hiss, and the massive iron gates began to swing slowly, silently inward. A full minute later, a black Range Rover, the kind that looks more armored than civilian, drove down the long, winding drive. It stopped directly in front of her. A tall, impeccably dressed man in his 50s with the build of a former operative and the suit of a CEO stepped out. This was Mr. Harrison, the man whose voice she'd heard. He didn't offer to take her bag. He simply opened the rear passenger door. "Ms. Rossi," he said. It was a statement, not a question. "Mr. Harrison?" She slid into the plush leather interior. The door closed with the solid, airtight sound of a bank vault. They drove for what felt like miles through a forest so dense it was clear Cole had bought the surrounding hillsides just to preserve his isolation. They rounded a final bend, and Graywood appeared. It wasn't a mansion. It was a monument. A sprawling structure of gray stone, steel, and glass. It didn't sit on the landscape. It dominated it. It was cold, beautiful, and utterly terrifying. Harrison escorted her inside. The interior was vast, with ceilings 3 stories high. The art on the walls wasn't decorative. It was a statement of power. A massive Anselm Kiefer here, a wall-sized Gerhard Richter there. It was a museum curated by a predator. She was not told to wait. She was led directly through the cavernous space to a set of tall oak doors. Harrison opened one. "Mr. Cole?" Isabella walked in. The room was a library, but unlike any she had ever seen. 2 stories of books, a roaring fireplace, and a wall of glass overlooking a sheer cliff face, and the rolling gray Connecticut hills. A man stood by the window, his back to her. He was tall, silver-haired, and wore a bespoke charcoal suit that probably cost more than her old gallery. "Damien Shaw," the man said, his voice a low rumble. He turned and Isabella finally saw him. Sebastian Cole. His eyes were the color of a winter sky, pale, clear, and cold. "I haven't heard that name in almost a decade. He's a ghost. A bankrupt, disgraced con artist who crawled under a rock." He walked toward her, stopping a few feet away. He was assessing her the way he would a stock accompany a threat. "So, Ms. Rossi," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "You have 1 minute to explain why you invoked his name at my gate, and what exactly is a Rossetti ledger. Mr. Cole." Isabella said, her calm finally meeting its equal. "Damien Shaw isn't a ghost. He's a monster of your creation. And this ledger is the receipt." Sebastian Cole did not invite her to sit. He stood in the center of the vast library, a shark in his own magnificent tank waiting for her to bleed. "A monster of my creation," he repeated, a flicker of cold amusement in his eyes. "Ms. Rossi, I knew Damien Shaw for exactly 6 weeks. He was a junior associate at a firm I was acquiring. He was arrogant, reckless, and frankly mediocre. I crushed his hostile bid for my subsidiary not because it was a threat, but because it was an annoyance. Like swatting a fly. He bankrupted himself trying to fight me. That wasn't creation. That was natural selection." Isabella held his gaze. "You think that's what happened? You think you won?" She unzipped the Toomey suitcase right there on the priceless Persian rug. She bypassed the clothes and pulled out the thick leather-bound ledger. She held it. She didn't hand it over. "You're an art collector, Mr. Cole. I know you are. The art newspaper has called your collection singularly aggressive. You buy what you want, and you remove it from the world." "Get to the point," Cole said. 10 years ago," Isabella said, her voice precise, "you made a private acquisition, a painting that was meant to be the crown jewel of your pre-Raphaelite collection. A lost masterpiece. The Salutation of Beatrice by Dante Gabriel Rossetti. It was purchased through a Swiss proxy from a distressed noble family in Italy. It cost you through back channels $12 million. Cole's expression didn't change, but the air in the room crackled. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Harrison, who had been standing by the door, took one almost imperceptible step forward. "The painting was declared authentic," Cole said, his voice flat. "It was vetted by the highest experts." "No," Isabella said. "It was vetted by one expert, a young, ambitious appraiser who had just co-founded a gallery with her brilliant, charismatic new husband. An expert who was so blinded by love and ambition that she staked her entire reputation on a forged provenance. My reputation." She finally stepped forward and placed the ledger on a massive mahogany desk. "Damien didn't lose to you in that takeover bid, Mr. Cole. He let you win. It was a smokescreen. While you were busy crushing his mediocre public bid, he was running the perfect long con. He used the chaos of the merger to access your private acquisition fund, your off-books passion projects. He knew you were hunting for a Rossetti, so he found one." Cole was perfectly, terribly still. "A fake." "A masterpiece of a fake," Isabella corrected him. "He spent a year creating it. The provenance was a work of fiction so brilliant it was almost art itself. He used me, my expertise, my credentials to give it the final seal of approval. And you, the gray wolf, the man who could see every angle in the market, bought it without a second thought." She tapped the ledger. "He used that $12 million, your $12 million, to build Shaw and Rossi Fine Arts, to build the life he just stole from me. He didn't just bankrupt himself fighting you, Mr. Cole. He bankrupted me using your money. He built his entire empire on the humiliation of Sebastian Cole." Cole stared at the ledger, his jaw working. The idea that he had been made a fool of, that his greatest victory was a cover for his greatest humiliation, was a poison he couldn't swallow. "And this ledger?" he finally asked, his voice a rasp. Damien is a narcissist, Isabella said. He couldn't help himself. He had to document his genius. It's all in here. Not his name, of course. It's coded. But it details every step. The pigment sourcing, the aging process for the canvas, the bribes to the Swiss lawyer, the distressed Italian family that never existed, and most importantly, the offshore accounts where the money was washed. The same accounts he used years later to hide his assets from me during our divorce. She finally let the mask of calm slip just for a second. The raw pain and fury surfaced. He left me with hundreds of thousands of dollars in business debt tied to a gallery that was built on a lie. Your lie. I have an eviction notice in my purse. I am ruined. Cole looked from the book to her face. He saw no tears. He saw no weakness. He saw an instrument of revenge. What do you want, Ms. Rossi? He asked. I don't want your money, she said, pulling herself back. I don't want your charity. I want my name back. I want the fraudulent debts tied to my name erased. And to do that, the original sin has to be exposed. The Rossetti has to be proven a fake. And Damien? Cole asked, a new predatory light entering his eyes. What about him? Damien Shaw is a predator, Isabella said. He's not a ghost. He's just moved on. He's in Dubai now. He's with Chloe Ryder. He's using her family's money to build a new fund, a new gallery, a new life. All while I'm being thrown out of my apartment. She paused, then delivered the final fatal line. I want him erased, not his company. Him. I want him left with nothing. Just like he did to me. And you, Mr. Cole. You're the only man alive who hates him enough to help me do it. A slow, cold smile spread across Sebastian Cole's face. It was not a kind smile. Ms. Rossi, he said, finally gesturing to one of the plush leather chairs. Please, sit. Harrison, bring Ms. Rossi a drink. I believe we have a great deal to discuss. For the next 2 hours, Isabella didn't just talk. She performed an autopsy. With the Rossetti ledger as her guide, she walked Sebastian Cole through every facet of Damien's psyche. She explained the codes, the shell corporations, the network of contacts. She laid bare the mind of the man who had fooled them both. Cole, for his part, was a chillingly fast learner. He absorbed the information with an intensity that was almost physical. He had his own team lawyers from Cravath, Swaine & Moore and private investigators who operated in the shadows on a conference call within minutes. He's not just in Dubai, Cole mused, pacing in front of the fireplace. He's been using Ryder's name to get access to the Al Maktoum circles. He's trying to legitimize himself as a major player in the Middle Eastern art market. He's repeating the pattern, Isabella said. He's using her credentials, her family's money, just like he used my expertise. Once he has what he wants, he'll drain her family's accounts and disappear, leaving her to take the fall. A reptile, Cole said, not without a trace of professional admiration for the sheer audacity of the con. He sheds his skin and leaves the husk behind for the predators. I was the husk, Isabella said, her voice flat. Now Chloe Ryder is. A plan began to form, a complex structure of finance, law, and deceit. Cole's team could freeze assets, but to truly destroy Damien, they needed to catch him in the act. They needed to lure him out of the safety of Dubai, away from the protection of the Ryder family's wealth. He has one weakness, Isabella said, leaning forward. The same one that made him keep this ledger. His ego. He can't stand the idea of a prize he can't have. The bait, Cole said. We need something better than the Rossetti. There is, Isabella said, her mind already working. There's a story he and I always obsessed over. A myth in the art world. A companion piece to a famous Vermeer the Concert which was stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in 1990. The myth is that a private sister painting The Reading exists and is in a private European collection. Does it exist? Cole asked. No, Isabella said, but Damien always believed it did. He believed he was the only one smart enough to find it. If he got a whisper that the reading was surfacing, that Sebastian Cole was moving to acquire it, he would do anything to intercept it, to steal it from you, to prove he was smarter than you all over again. Cole's smile returned. Oh, this is good. This is very good. We'll leak it through a source at the art newspaper. We'll set the stage. A private sale. London, neutral ground. He'll come, Isabella said. He won't be able to resist. He'll come and my people will be waiting. We'll have the London police Interpol. We'll have him arrested for the Rossetti fraud for starters. The evidence in this ledger combined with my testimony, he'll be buried. It was a perfect, cold, and brilliant plan. A plan for revenge meticulously crafted in a billionaire's library. As the final details were being sketched out, the oak door opened. Harrison stepped in his face, a mask of professional urgency. "Sir," he said to Cole, his voice low, "you have an unexpected visitor at the gate. I would not normally trouble you, but she's invoking the same name Ms. Rossi did." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Who is it?" "Her name is Chloe Ryder," Harrison said. "She's alone. She's hysterical. And she says Damien Shaw has disappeared with over $20 million of her father's money." Isabella's blood ran cold. She stood up. "She's here? Now?" Cole looked from Isabella to Harrison. The plan so perfectly constructed had just been shattered, or perhaps it had just been handed a new, far more potent weapon. "Harrison!" Cole ordered, a predatory gleam in his eye. "The poor girl looks distressed. Bring her in." Chloe Ryder was not the woman Isabella remembered from the gossip pages. The creature who was half led, half dragged into the library by Mr. Harrison was a wreck. Her blonde hair was matted, her mascara running in black rivers down her pale cheeks. She wore an expensive Balenciaga sweatshirt, but it was stained with what looked like coffee or perhaps wine. She was 23 years old, and she looked like a child who had just seen her entire world burn down. When she saw Isabella, she stopped dead. Her face, already pale, turned a ghostly white. "You," Chloe whispered, her voice cracking. "Oh, God, you're her. Isabella. Ms. Ryder." Isabella said, her voice devoid of pity. It was one thing to see this woman in a photograph. It was another to see her in the flesh in the home of the man she had come to for help. "What is she doing here?" Chloe demanded, turning on Sebastian Cole. I came to warn you. Damien, he's coming for you." Cole, ever the puppet master, simply gestured to another chair. "Please, Ms. Ryder, calm yourself. It seems we have a mutual interest. Ms. Rossi is my guest. Now tell me, what has Damien done?" Chloe collapsed into the chair, her body racked with sobs. "He's gone. He's just gone." It took Harrison bringing her a glass of water which she drank and a brandy which she clutched for the story to come out in fragmented, terrified bursts. It was exactly as Isabella had predicted, only faster. "He was so charming," Chloe wept. My father hated him. He said he was a fraud. But I didn't listen. Damien had used her. He'd used her name to open doors to meet the wealthiest families in Dubai. He'd convinced her and her father, a powerful industrialist named Arthur Ryder, to invest $20 million as seed money for a new exclusive art fund. A sure thing. "The money was wired to an account in Switzerland 3 days ago," Chloe choked out. "Yesterday. He was gone. His penthouse is empty. His phones are disconnected. The bank says the account is empty. It's all gone. $20 million. And he's coming for me, you said," Cole prodded gently. When he found out he went insane," Chloe said, her eyes wide with fear. "He made calls. He has people. They found things. They found out about you, about the old lawsuit. They found out Damien was obsessed with you. He left a note." She fumbled in her pocket, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. "I found it in his safe. It just says, 'Tell Sebastian Cole I'm finally coming to collect the interest.'" Isabella and Cole locked eyes. This changed everything. Damien wasn't just running a new con. He was actively planning a new attack on Cole. "And my father," Chloe continued, oblivious to the silent communication. He's going to the authorities. He's going to have Damien arrested, but he thinks I was in on it. He thinks I helped him. He's cut me off. He said I'd be lucky if I don't go to jail with him." She looked at Isabella, her eyes suddenly desperate, stripped of all rivalry. "He did it to me. Exactly what he did to you. He told me about you. He said you were unstable. He said you'd tried to ruin him, that you were obsessed." Here she was, the other woman, the usurper, the 22-year-old trophy wife who had taken her life, and she was, as Isabella had been, just another husk. Isabella felt a cold, hard knot in her stomach. It wasn't pity. It was rage. A focused, clarifying rage. Damien didn't just destroy one woman at a time. He lined them up one after the other, using the old one's wreckage to seduce the new one. "He won't be arrested," Isabella said, her voice cutting through Chloe's sobs. Chloe looked up. "What?" "He's too smart for that," Isabella said, turning to Cole. "Your father's people won't find him. The money is gone, washed through 10 different accounts by now. He wants you to run here. He wants your father to go to the police. It's all noise. It's a distraction." "A distraction from what?" Cole asked. "From his real target," Isabella said. "The Vermeer, the reading. He left that note for a reason. He knows you're looking for it." A terrible dawning realization hit Cole. "My office. My acquisitions team. He must have a source. He's not reacting to our plan. He's been ahead of it." Damien wasn't waiting for them to set a trap. He was setting his own. He knew Cole would be his enemy, and he had used Chloe to fund his war, then left her to detonate like a bomb in their laps, a calculated, chaotic mess. "He thinks we're predictable," Isabella said. "He thinks you," she nodded at Cole, "will come at him with lawyers. And he thinks you," she looked at Chloe, "will dissolve into a puddle of tears and Daddy's money. He thinks I'm a non-entity, a piece of ancient history." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the gray, unforgiving landscape. "We're not going to London," she said. "What?" Cole said, standing as well. "We have to. The trap is flawed," Isabella said, turning back, her eyes burning with a new terrifying fire. "Because he's anticipated it. We're not going to catch him with a fake Vermeer. He's too good. He'd spot the fake and he'd be gone." "Then what do we do?" Chloe whispered, looking between the two powerful, frightening figures. Isabella looked at Chloe, the woman who had replaced her, the woman who had slept in her bed while she was being served divorce papers. She saw the shared, humiliating brand of Damien Shaw on her. "We're not going to use a fake painting," Isabella said, a dangerous, brilliant, and terrible idea blooming in her mind. "We're going to use a fake victim." She stared directly at Chloe Ryder. "He thinks you're a broken, hysterical child running home. Fine. You're going to call him. You're going to find him, and you're going to tell him you're not broken. You're going to tell him you hate your father. You're going to tell him you have a new plan, a plan to get more." Chloe looked terrified. I can't. He's gone." "He's not gone," Isabella said. "He's just waiting. He has to be. He's waiting to see what you'll do, what Cole will do. You're going to call him, and you're going to offer him the one thing in the world he can't resist." "What?" Chloe asked. Isabella looked at Cole. "You don't just own a Richter, do you, Mr. Cole? You own the 1932 Picasso, Le Rêve." Cole nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing as he saw where she was going. "I do. It's worth $150 million easily," Isabella said. "You're going to tell him, Chloe, that you're so angry at your father and so in love with Damien that you're going to help him steal it. You have an in. Me." Chloe's jaw dropped. You. Yes. You'll tell him you found me the crazy ex-wife. That I'm living in squalor and I'm bitter and I want revenge on Cole. You'll tell him I'm willing to be your inside woman. For a price. Damien knows I authenticated the Rossetti. He knows my credentials. He knows I have the expertise to bypass a high-end security system. He will believe it. His ego won't let him do otherwise. You're going to rob Mr. Cole, Chloe stammered. No. Sebastian Cole said, the cold smile back wider than ever. We are going to set a trap. Not at Sotheby's, not in London, but right here, at Greywood. The plan was a whisper campaign played out over encrypted lines. Chloe, coached by Isabella, made the call. It took 2 days for Damien to respond, not with a call, but with a text from a burner phone. Intriguing. Tell me more. The hook was set. Over the next week, Greywood was transformed. The bait wasn't just Le Rêve, it was the entire illusion. Isabella, playing the part of the disgruntled, vengeful expert, fed Damien information. She sent him security codes, all fake, supplied by Harrison. She sent him blueprints, also fake. She described Harrison's patrol routes, altered. Chloe, meanwhile, played the loving, rebellious ingenue, promising him a new life built on the ashes of her father and his rival. Damien, blinded by his own towering arrogance, saw only what he wanted to see. 2 broken women he had wronged now fighting each other to serve his interests. He saw his own genius reflected back at him. The night of the planned heist was a masterpiece of stagecraft. A violent howling storm, real but perfectly timed, lashed the Connecticut coast. Cole, in an incredible piece of theater, made a public departure via helicopter earlier that day, flying to Chicago for an emergency meeting. He was, in fact, sitting in Harrison's high-tech security command center, hidden in a sub-basement of the estate, watching everything on a bank of monitors. The Picasso Le Rêve hung in the West Gallery, a long hall of glass and steel. This was the trap. At 2:17 a.m., a sensor tripped. Damien Shaw, clad in black, moving with a predator's grace, slipped through a glass door Isabella had left unlocked. He was here. He hadn't sent a lackey. His ego demanded he do this himself. He moved through the dark, cavernous house, disabling the fake alarms exactly as Isabella had instructed. He was a ghost in the machine. He entered the West Gallery. The Picasso hung at the far end, softly illuminated, and standing in front of it, her back to him, was Isabella. Damien stopped. This was not part of the plan. Isabella, he hissed, his voice a low, dangerous purr. What are you doing? You're supposed to be on the perimeter. Isabella turned. She was not wearing tactical gear. She was wearing the simple black dress she had packed. She was perfectly calm. Hello, Damien, she said. He stepped into the light. He was thinner than she remembered Harder. The charm was still there, but it was coated in a reptilian sheen. You look like hell, darling. I almost feel guilty. You don't feel guilt, Damien, Isabella said. You feel appetite. Very poetic. He sneered, his eyes darting to the Picasso. Now get out of the way. We're on a clock. The alarms are real, Damien, she said. The codes I gave you just rerouted the silent alarms directly to Harrison, who is downstairs with Mr. Cole. Damien froze. His hand twitched, perhaps toward a weapon. He looked at her, his eyes narrowing the entire con, the past, the present, clicking into place. You, he whispered, the realization dawning. This, Chloe, it was all you. He thought you were a fly, Isabella said, taking a step toward him. Sebastian Cole. He said swatting you was natural selection. But I knew better. You're not a fly, Damien. You're a mirror. You just reflect what people want, and you use it to destroy them. You set me up, he snarled. You, the pauper. You came crawling to Cole after what he did to me, to us. He didn't do anything to us. You did. You and your Rossetti. The Rossetti was genius. he hissed, his ego flaring even now in the jaws of the trap. It made us. It ruined me. Isabella shouted, her calmness finally shattering the rage of years erupting. You built a life on a forgery and then you left me to pay for it. It was a small price to pay for that kind of art. He laughed, a high manic sound. And you were my greatest creation. Better than the Rossetti. That's where you're wrong, Damien, Isabella said, her voice dropping back to a lethal quiet. She stepped to the side, revealing a small canvas on an easel next to the Picasso one that had been hidden in the shadows. Damien looked at it. His blood ran cold. It was the Salutation of Beatrice, the fake Rossetti, the painting that was supposed to be in Cole's vault in Geneva. How? He breathed. Cole. He brought it here. Yes, he wanted to see it again, Isabella said. He wanted to see the con that cost him $12 million. It's a masterpiece, Damien said, walking toward it, his guard dropping for a fatal second, mesmerized by his own crime. The brushwork, the craquelure, it's perfect. I found the perfect artist to make it. Yes, you did, Isabella said. You're a brilliant con man, Damien. But you made one fatal mistake. You forgot. He turned to her, confused. Forgot what? You didn't find an artist, Isabella said, her voice shaking with the force of the confession. I was a starving post-grad art restorer when I met you. You told me it was a hypothetical restoration, a test for a client. You gave me the canvas, the period-specific pigments. You gave me the instructions. She tapped the ledger, which was sitting on a pedestal near the easel. Her ledger. You thought this was your diary, your monument, she said. But it's not. It's my studio log, your instructions, my notes, my chemical formulas. Damien's face went white. The final terrible truth dawned on him. It wasn't just my name you used to authenticate it, Damien, she said, her voice breaking with the shame and fury of a decade-old secret. It was my hand. I painted it. I forged the Rossetti for you. Damien stared at her, speechless. This was the one variable he had never calculated. The one piece of leverage she had, the one secret that bound them together. All these years, he stammered. All these years I kept quiet. Because if you went down for fraud, I went down for forgery. You used that to control me. You knew I'd never talk. You destroyed my life knowing I was chained to your crime. You left me with the debts knowing I couldn't expose the real reason our gallery was built, because it was a front to launder the money we stole. You wouldn't, he said, but the confidence was gone. I have nothing left to lose, Damien, she said. I came here ready to confess everything, to burn myself to the ground just to take you with me. But Mr. Cole, he's a practical man. He prefers a solution where only one person burns. On cue, the gallery doors at both ends hissed open. Floodlights snapped on blinding Damien. Mr. Harrison stood at one end. Sebastian Cole stood at the other. With him was Chloe Ryder and a very large, very angry man Isabella assumed was her father, Arthur Ryder. Checkmate, Cole said. Damien looked around, trapped. He looked at Isabella. You bitch! No, Damien, Isabella said, picking up the ledger. I'm just the ex-wife, the one you forgot. He lunged. Not for the painting, not for the door. He lunged for her. For the ledger. He never made it. Harrison moved with a speed that was inhuman, intercepting him in a single brutal motion. Damien was on the floor, his arm twisted behind his back. A cuff snapped on his wrist before he could even cry out. It was over. The reckoning did not happen in a courtroom. It was a bloodless corporate execution staged at 4:03 a.m. in the Graywood conference room. The storm outside had died, leaving an exhausted pre-dawn silence that was far more unnerving than the thunder. Damien Shaw sat at the center of the 30-foot mahogany table. He was a wreck. His black tactical gear was damp, his face was a sickly gray, and a small precise cut from Harrison's takedown was bleeding sluggishly onto his collar. The charismatic bravado was gone, replaced by the hollow, frantic eyes of a cornered animal. At the head of the table sat Sebastian Cole, looking as immaculate in his charcoal suit as if he'd just had a full night's sleep. To his right sat a bulldog of a man, Arthur Ryder, his face puce with a rage that seemed to be aging him by the minute. Flanking them were 3 lawyers from Cravath, Swain & Moore, men with ice water in their veins who looked like they billed by the second even at this ungodly hour. Isabella and Chloe sat on the opposite side of the table, not as participants, but as a jury. One of the lawyers, a senior partner named Blevins, pushed a thin file toward Damien. "Mr. Shaw," Blevins said, his voice a dry rustle of paper, "you are in a uniquely catastrophic position, so we will be brief. You have 2 options. This is option A." He tapped the file. "Option A is the public route. In approximately 1 hour, Mr. Cole and Mr. Ryder will contact the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, the SEC, and Interpol. We will present them with this." He held up the Rossetti ledger. "We will present them with wire transfer receipts from Mr. Ryder's accounts totaling $20 million. We will add to this the new testimony of Ms. Rossi, who has agreed to confess to her role under duress, of course, in the creation of the fraudulent Rossetti, and to provide testimony as to its sale." Damien flinched, his eyes darting to Isabella. She met his gaze, her own as cold and hard as the stone outside. "The charges," Blevins continued, "will include but are not limited to conspiracy, international wire fraud, grand larceny, and high-value art forgery. Given the amounts and the interstate commerce, we will likely be pursuing RICO statutes. Your assets, those you think are hidden, will be frozen by 9 a.m. You will be arraigned, your name will be on the New York Post by noon, and you will spend the next 25 to 30 years in a federal prison. That is option A." A bead of sweat ran down Damien's temple. And B? Blevins slid a second, much thicker document across the table. It was a 30-page confession bound in a simple blue cover. "Option B," said Cole, speaking for the first time, his voice a low rumble, "is silence. This document is your full and binding confession to every crime just listed. In it you attest that you coerced Ms. Rossi using emotional and financial blackmail to assist in the Rossetti forgery. You will legally and fully absolve her of all willing participation. Furthermore, you will admit to the creative accounting that bankrupted Shaw and Rossi, and you will assume 100% of the associated marital and business debts, retroactively clearing Ms. Rossi's name entirely. This is—" Damien stammered, his hands shaking as he touched the cover. "This is insane." "It gets better," Arthur Ryder snarled, leaning forward. "The confession is attached to a series of financial directives. You will liquidate every hidden asset: the accounts in the Caymans, the Shell Corporation in Liechtenstein, the half-built gallery in Dubai. Our forensic accountants," he gestured to one of the lawyers, "have already mapped them. The first 12 million plus interest goes back to Mr. Cole. The next 20 million goes back to me. The remainder," he gave a cruel laugh, "will cover Mr. Blevins' legal fees for this evening." "It leaves me with nothing," Damien whispered, staring at the pages. "Exactly," Cole said. "You will be left with the clothes on your back and a one-way economy plus ticket. I am feeling generous to a small, unremarkable country with no extradition treaty. You will be given a new passport with a new unremarkable name. You will, for all intents and purposes, cease to exist. You will become the ghost you pretended to be." You can't," Damien said, a last flicker of his old self rising. He looked at Isabella, a sudden venomous hatred in his eyes. You painted it. You were in on it from the beginning, you lying bitch. You can't just—" "I was a 24-year-old student, Damien." Isabella cut him off, her voice ringing with clarity in the dead quiet room. "You called it a hypothetical restoration. You told me it was a test for a client. I was in love, and you called it our little secret. The difference between us is that I came here tonight fully prepared to go to prison for my mistake. I was willing to burn. You're just trying to escape the fire." Her words hung in the air, an undeniable truth. The fight went out of him, his entire body slumping in defeat. He knew he was checkmated. Blevins clicked a sleek silver pen and set it precisely on top of the confession. "The choice is yours, Mr. Shaw. The clock is ticking." Damien stared at the pen. He looked at Cole's power, at Ryder's fury, at Chloe's pity, and finally at Isabella's calm, devastating resolve. He was not a con man. He was not a genius. He was just a man in a room out of options. His hand, shaking with a tremor that would never truly leave him, picked up the pen. The only sound in the room for the next 5 minutes was the scratch of a soul being forfeit as he signed his name over and over, page after page. When he was done, he let the pen drop. Harrison and 2 of Arthur Ryder's private security men stepped forward. They didn't grab him. They simply flanked him. "It's over, Mr. Shaw," Harrison said. Damien stood a hollowed-out man. He didn't look at anyone as they escorted him from the room, out of the mansion, and out of a life he had stolen piece by piece. He was now a ghost. Yeah. As the conference room door closed, the lawyers packed their briefcases with chilling efficiency, nodded to Cole, and left. Arthur Ryder walked over to Chloe, his anger replaced by a deep, weary exhaustion. "Let's go home, sweetheart." Chloe nodded, but first she walked to Isabella. Her eyes were red, her face pale. I don't know what to say," she whispered, the last of her childish bravado gone. You saved me. You saved my family. After what I did. After I took—" "He did it, Chloe," Isabella said, her voice not unkind but firm. "You were just the new model. He uses people. He used my expertise, and he used your connections. Don't be the next one. Go home. Make peace with your father. Learn from this." Chloe looked at her, a deep, dawning respect in her eyes. "He didn't just take money, did he? He took years from you." "He took what I let him," Isabella said. "Go." Chloe and her father left. The great doors of the library closed, leaving only Isabella and Sebastian Cole. The sun was just beginning to rise, a pale, watery gold light spilling through the massive glass wall, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The fake Rossetti still sat on its easel, a toxic, silent witness to the night's drama. Cole walked to his bar and poured 2 glasses of scotch, the 25-year-old Macallan. He handed one to Isabella. "A toast, Ms. Rossi," he said, his voice softer now, "to a partnership that exceeded all expectations." They drank. The silence was heavy, but not uncomfortable. "My curator, Dr. Aris," Cole said, swirling the amber liquid. "He was the one feeding Shaw information. He was on Shaw's payroll for a year, leaking my acquisition targets. A spectacular and frankly embarrassing lapse in my judgment." He turned to face her, his winter sky eyes assessing. "The position is now open. Head curator of the Cole collection. The salary is obscene. The resources unlimited. You would have access to a world you've been locked out of for a decade." Isabella's heart gave a single painful jolt. It was everything. The job, the prestige, the money, the safety. The world that had been stolen from her, handed back on a silver platter. She would be untouchable. She could spend her life surrounded by the beauty she loved. "Why me?" she asked. "Because," Cole said, "you have the one quality I now find indispensable. You have an eye for the lie. You see the flaw in the perfect narrative. You saw it in the Rossetti, you saw it in Damien, and you saw it in my initial flawed plan to trap him. You are not just an expert, Ms. Rossi. You are a truth-teller. I need that." It was the ultimate temptation. She would no longer be the forger. She would be the arbiter. She looked at Cole, the gray wolf of Greenwich, a man who collected power as obsessively as he collected art. She realized in that moment that she would simply be the most beautiful, most valuable piece in his collection. She would be his weapon, his singular eye kept in a magnificent gilded cage. She turned her gaze to the painting on the easel. Her painting, the masterpiece of her youth, the monument to her shame, the physical proof of her perverted talent. "Thank you, Mr. Cole," she said, her voice perfectly clear in the morning light. It's an incredible offer, a life-changing one. But no. Cole's eyebrow raised a fraction of an inch. It was the first time all night he looked genuinely surprised. No, Ms. Rossi, I am offering you the art world on a platter. You will be back on the street by noon. Your debts are cleared, but you are still penniless. You're right. You cleared my name. You gave me my life back. That is all I came for, she said. She set her empty scotch glass down. That job, it's about protecting acquisitions. It's about vetting other people's work. I spent the last decade of my life tied to a lie, obsessed with a fake. I am done with forgeries. I am done with validation. I am done with other people's art. She walked to the easel. She really looked at the painting. It was a masterpiece. She whispered a eulogy for her corrupted youth. My masterpiece. Then, with a sudden deliberate and cleansing grace, she grabbed the heavy gilded frame. She turned, and with a cry that came from a decade of silence, she smashed it over the sharp stone edge of the fireplace. The sound was a violent, shocking crack of wood and a rip of canvas. The face of Beatrice, which she had painted with such love and such shame, was torn in two. She was breathing heavily, her hands shaking, but not from fear, from release. Cole did not move. He was not angry. He watched her, a slow, deep look of profound understanding and, perhaps for the first time in his life, true respect on his face. He gave a single, slow nod. This was the real answer. This was the final, non-negotiable term of her victory. I'm going to paint, Isabella said, her voice shaking with the force of her new reality. Under my own name. She walked to the hall, picked up her single Toomey suitcase. It was so much lighter now. Thank you for the scotch, Mr. Cole. And with the same impossible calm she'd had when she packed her bags in that squalid apartment, Isabella Rossi walked out of the billionaire's mansion, past the now open gates, and into the raw, unforgiving, and glorious morning sun. 8 months later. A small galleria off the Piazza Santo Spirito in Florence held its first opening. The stone walls were ancient, the arched doorways low. The air smelled of old plaster turpentine and strong espresso. The show was titled Vernissage Isabella Rossi. The paintings were enormous. They were not polite. They were not pre-Raphaelite. They were bold, abstract, and structural, using thick, violent impasto and raw pigments. They were about the deconstruction of beauty, about the layers beneath the varnish. They were not pretty. They were true. A prominent Italian critic was overheard muttering to a colleague, "È formidabile, è come se stesse scuoiando la tela." It's formidable. It's as if she's flaying the canvas. A courier in a sharp Brioni suit arrived, holding a long flat package. He delivered it to Isabella, who was in the back wiping crimson paint from her hands. She opened it. Inside, matted in archival quality linen, was an exquisite, small, and undeniably authentic charcoal and chalk study by Dante Gabriel Rossetti. It was a preparatory drawing for Beatrice's hands. The hands of the artist. The hands that had made the fake. The hands that had destroyed it. The hands that were now finally her own. Attached was a card on that same thick, cream-colored cardstock. Ms. Rossi. A real one this time. To the better artist. I've bought the 2 largest pieces from your show. They're being hung in the West Gallery. Don't let the critics tell you what to paint. S.C. A slow smile touched Isabella's lips. He had not bought the art as a favor. He had acquired it, the ultimate mark of respect from a man like Cole. The validation finally on her own terms. She propped the small, priceless sketch on her workbench, a reminder, not a trophy. She turned back to a massive canvas, gesso white and perfectly blank. She picked up a brush, dipped it in a furious, vibrant crimson, and began. She walked away with nothing, and therefore with everything. Isabella's story proves that the most dangerous person isn't the one with the most money or the most power. It's the one with nothing left to lose, and the truth as their only weapon. What did you think of Isabella's final choice? Was it brilliant or should she have taken the job with Cole? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you love stories of high-stakes drama and incredible revenge, please hit that like button. It truly helps the channel. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a good story. Most importantly, subscribe to our channel and ring that bell. We have so many more stories like this one coming, and you don't want to miss a single shocking twist. Thanks for listening.